Hi, welcome to Recruitment and Selection. This is Dr. Rich, and I wanted to spend a couple minutes today, well, more than a couple minutes, but a few minutes and provide just a really informal um, introduction overview to this course. So, you've got the syllabus. I want you to read through that really well and then kind of look through Canvas, familiarize yourself with the course. But the point of this session is just to kind of give you some tips, kind of a quick start guide, if you will, so you know kind of what you need to be focused on, what you need to, be doing, um, so that you can hit the ground running. This course is intensive, even as a semester long course. So we're doing it in 6 weeks. So that first, I want to make sure that um, you start with the right mindset. You cannot waste any time. I know in some classes, when you have the whole semester, sometimes the first week is just kind of getting your feet wet and making sure you have the book, and but not with this course. It's important that you hit the ground running. Okay, and I also want to explain a few things that some kind of the reasons behind the way that the course is structured, so that you kind of understand why some things are the way that they are, because there is a method or a reason to how I've got the structure of the course set up. So, um, I'm assuming that most of you have taken a course on Canvas at UWF before. Um, if not, that's okay. But just the scope of this introduction is not on how to use Canvas. It's on specific elements of this course. So, uh, having said that, I don't want anybody stressed or anxious or fretting over the technical aspects of this course or how to use the software tools or Canvas. I am here to help. There are resources as well. There is actually, and I'm not sure if I've posted it. Yes, here we go, right here. So in Canvas, under the Welcome to the Course Start Here module, Introduction Orientation to Canvas. So if you've never used Canvas before, this will be a great resource. If you click on it, come on, why is it going slow? Um, you'll see different topics in an overview video for students, a few video resources. Um, so if you've never used Canvas, start there. And then also, like I said, if you're going through this video and you can't keep up and you're feeling overwhelmed, please just reach out to me. I'm happy to meet individually with you to go over things in more detail, or to shoot me an email if you have more questions, whatever. If it's stuff that I think the whole class would benefit from me elaborating on, I might even post a part 2 video later in the week. So I am here to help. One thing that I want to make sure you realize, as obvious as it may seem, that with online courses, because there's no physical, like, class meetings, and we're not like face to face touching base periodically, it's really hard for me to distinguish between students. My goodness, I'm sorry you hear the car alarm. Sorry about that. It's really hard for me to distinguish on my end if I see somebody that's doing poorly in the class. It's almost impossible for me to tell whether that is because they don't care and they're just not trying, or because they're struggling. Like, it's almost impossible to tell from this side. So it's important that you let me know if you're struggling, because I'm not going to reach out individually. I saw you miss this assignment, or you did poor on the exam. Let's talk about it. I'm happy to talk to you about that. I'm happy to go through things with you. I'm happy to provide as much support as you need, but you have to initiate that. That is your responsibility. Okay, so make sure you remember that going into this, that I do not know you're struggling unless you tell me. Okay, and so I want to help, but you have to initiate that helpline, that line of communication, and ask for it. Okay, so we're going to go through Canvas, but we're also going to kind of look at parts of the syllabus. So really, I'm just going to be flipping back and forth. Like I said, this is very informal. A few things. If you've taken a course of mine before, one of the HR courses, you'll notice a lot of similarities. I've tried to make a few. I've made a couple of changes to the structure format this semester, so there'll be a few differences, but you'll notice a lot of things are consistent. The way my terminology I use, how you submit work, how you sign up for group. Anyways, so you'll see some similarities, but let's start with how to reach me because that's important. My email and my cell phone number are listed on the syllabus. Either is fine. I ask that in either form of communication that you use, that you include your name and the course number. Okay, so you can say staffing, you can say man 5351. Even if you've texted, let's say you texted me this week about something, and in a few weeks from now you have another question. Each time you initiate a new conversation, even if it's text, include your name and course number. I know it might sound odd, but sometimes it's a good habit to get into. So I'm not having to scroll back through to try to. It just makes it much more efficient and helpful to me, and it's more professional. So always include that information with each new conversation. Sometimes, it really depends. Some students, I've heard from some students that are more comfortable emailing. Some prefer to text. So I want you to know kind of my preference. I think they each have a different strengths, and so I just ask that students consider which is more appropriate, and I've been including my personal cell phone number on my syllabus for years, and it's worked well so far. But I think that's because students, think before they communicate, because not everything needs to be texted, just like not everything needs to be emailed. So here's what I'll say. If you if you need to make sure that you're getting accommodations for testing accommodations, if you need documentation on something, if you're asking for something that's not urgent, that's next week, I for the first exam, I want to make sure I'm getting my time and a half. I want to make sure you got my SAR notes. Those types of requests need to be emailed. Okay, they don't have an immediate need, and we need a paper trail. It's much easier for me to document. It's much easier for me to document via email. Now, if you have an urgent matter, if you're on trying to take the exam and you get kicked out and you don't know what to do, that would be urgent. You text. Okay. The third kind of common situation or circumstance that I would describe would be, it's not really necessarily urgent, but it just is more convenient if you could get an immediate response. So let's say you're meeting with your team and you have a question. You're going to find this group. There is a lot of group work in this course. We'll talk about that. Yay. But let's say you're meeting with your team and you really aren't sure which way to go on a certain decision. You really don't know what I meant in the instructions here. Your one group member thinks this, you think something else. Those are situations where I want you to text me, and here's why. My schedule is flexible. I'm available most of the time. However, I do not check email all day throughout the day. Okay, because when I check email, my policy is I'll respond to email within 24 hours. I normally check email every morning, and then it just is going to vary day by day during summer. So there may be some days when I'm working most of the day, and if so, I'll respond to emails when I get them. There's other days when that's not the case. I work really early in the morning, sometimes really late at night. It's going to be my email. Like, I am not. If you send me an email, don't expect an immediate response. Okay, texting, you're going to get a much more close to immediate response. So I understand. I used to be a student, or even in the work setting. If you're working on something, if you're trying to figure something out and you have a question, it can be really frustrating, and you can lose a lot of momentum, and it can be very inefficient if you have to submit your question and then wait 24 hours to get an answer. I don't want you doing that. So if you're working with your group, if you're working by yourself, whatever, but if you have a question pertaining to an assignment, pertaining to your group work, need clarification on something, then I encourage you to text me. Now, you don't have to include a novel in text. You can briefly describe, are you able to talk, or you can send me an email if that's easier with more information, and then text me and say, hey, I just sent you an email that describes an issue we're having. Can you check it when you get a chance? Normally it will, I'll say, sure, give me a few minutes, I'm available now, we can meet later today, whatever. But you're going to get a more immediate response with text. I don't care when you text me. Like, I get up real early. Sometimes I go to bed early. Sometimes I'm up all night. But if I'm asleep, I don't hear anything. I'm a very sound sleeper, so you don't have to worry about me waking up for you texting. If you are working on something in the middle of the night and you text, I'll respond as soon as I wake up. And that may be really early. It may be, so just play that by ear, but feel free to text and recognize that texting is going to be the quicker way to get a response. Okay, so the syllabus has just normal information that you'd expect about the book. There is no subscription required for this, publisher subscription or anything like that. So used books fine. You can rent the book. Electronics fine. Hard copies fine. Fifth or fourth edition, there might be a few differences between the two, but nothing substantial. Okay, your exam is, so you take, hold on, I'm going to go back to this, but when you take the exam, you will take it with Lockdown Browser Respondus Monitor. So if you've never used that before, then, make sure you read this. It's really good. You need to have a webcam. There's plenty of information here. I'm not going to read it. Within the exam folder in Canvas, I've set up, so there's a Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor module that includes information on how to use it. And then this is a practice quiz, so it should also, that you'll see that information is accessible normally through multiple modules. I try to put it in multiple places so it's easy to find. But you'll see a Respondus Lockdown practice quiz as well. This is a quiz in a sense that it helps just check to make sure everything's working correctly, like your webcam's working, you've downloaded the software correctly. So I suggest that you do that before the first exam to make sure you're good to go. This does not help you prepare content-wise, so it is not going to, help what content to focus on by any means. It's just a practice quiz in the way that it'll make sure your webcam's working, that you're able to use Lockdown Browser, that you don't have any weird firewalls or whatever, because you don't want to run into that if you wait till the last minute and take the exam Sunday night that it's due. There's not going to be a whole lot, you might be on your own. If it's 10 p.m. on Sunday, you log in, it's nothing working. So you want to make sure you do this, preferably during the weekday before the exam. That way, if there are issues, if it's not anything I can fix, we can get whoever, and normally it is. If you've got an issue with accessing, with Lockdown Browser, that's normally not a me thing. That's going to be something with IT. It's something with on more the computer technical side. Okay, so going back here, I'm not going to read all this. You should read all this. Here's an overview of the course. So, and I want to spend a few minutes so you kind of understand. This is a little bit different. So there's only one exam. Okay, there's one exam that covers 5 chapters. Okay, you have for each chapter you have a chapter outline I post with PowerPoint slides that have embedded lectures that cover the material to help you learn it. And so the chapter outlines is basically questions: define this, describe this, explain this, and you're going to complete those. The chapter outline for each chapter. These chapter outlines will help you prepare for the exam. I write the exam based on the chapter outlines. You'll notice that the chapter outlines do not cover every section of every chapter. If it's not included on the chapter outline, we're not. Sorry, I'm gonna go in the other room. Sorry about that. There's everywhere I go seems to be distractions today. If it's not included on the chapter outline, it's not going to be included on the exam. The chapter outlines also emphasize content, material that is needed for the group project as well. So you'll get all the chapter outlines. I've got the 5 chapters 1 through 4 and 6 divided. They're assigned. Chapters 1 and 2, I believe, are assigned during week 1, and the chapters 3, 4, and 6 are assigned during week 2. But actually, you have until you take the first exam, which is the end of week 3, to submit all of your chapter outlines. So I assign it like 2 this week, 3 next week, to help you with time management, but just recognize that you are flexible. I recognize some of you are still trying to get your book, and I try to make this build in as much flexibility as I can. So to get the 50 points per outline, you need to submit them before you take the exam, which the testing window is during the 3rd week of the class. So these chapter outlines, I'll show you when we get into Canvas, but they are graded for completion only. Okay, so they're not. I don't provide feedback. I don't, mark you off or mark you right. They're pretty much, you should be able to find. It's looking things up in your textbook. It's watching the embedded lecture clips, going through the PowerPoint slides that provide the material that you need to focus on. So it's filling them in. Having said that, so you won't get feedback on the chapter outlines from me. But if you have questions, if you are confused about something, if you've watched the lecture videos and you aren't really sure if you're providing enough detail, if you're not, you don't know, then I am more than happy to meet with you and go through your chapter outlines and give you feedback. So it's not that I won't do it, I just don't provide that at an individual level for each one. So because you'll see when you get into it, like I tell you what, if you go through the PowerPoint slides, you read those sections of the book, and you listen to the embedded lectures, you'll know exactly what I'm looking for each section. So there shouldn't be any confusion as to what material to include in the chapter outlines. The questions would be maybe if you didn't understand something that you included. And in those cases, I'm definitely happy to meet with you and go over it. Okay, so you have an exam. It's week 3. It's a lot of material. Okay, and I understand that covering, because they're big chapters. Some of the chapters, especially, it's heavy content. All right, and so if you look at when you get into the course schedule and you look at the structure of the course, sometimes students feel like, well, why is it such? Like, for example, feedback that I get sometimes is, why is it so heavy loaded? Like, why is it because basically you're going to focus on the book content first, right? And then you're going to focus on this intensive group project. And then after you submit the group project, then you're going to really focus on this individual project. And the individual project has material. It's not in your book, but it's supplemental, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of like 3 waves or units in this course. And so, a lot of times some feedback is that, wow, I really I wish that the book work, like the chapters 1 through 4 and 6, were spread out throughout the semester, not drinking out of a fire hose the first 2 weeks. I hear you. I understand that. But that is not feasible because you have to understand the concepts to be able to do the project. Okay, so it doesn't work if you're trying to do the project and the coursework really simultaneously, because the point of the project is to apply the concepts, and so you have to learn the concepts before you can apply them. You at least have to know what they are. Okay, the exam. is early as well, because I need students to be accountable. Like you want your teammates to be accountable for knowing this material. If I didn't test on the material, but if I said, okay, well, just you want to do it for the project and we'll test on it later, give you some more flexibility, then some people would do what they need to do the project, but some people would not. They would not study, they would not do the work until they were, the weekend before the exam. And if that was the case, they would not be able to be make strong team contributions. Okay, so while I understand that, in a perfect world, things might be more preferable to have the content and the structure of this class arranged a little differently, I at least want you to recognize the reasoning why it is the way it is. Okay. After you do the group project, you do an individual project, and the individual project is additional content. So it's supplemental. The book we use doesn't cover sufficient content about covering or creating structured interview questions and scoring mechanisms. And instead of having you buy a second book just for a piece of the content that was missing, I kind of just put together supplemental material. So it's a PowerPoint presentation that has links to some videos and things that you work through that while you're doing this individual component. And so you're not tested on that supplemental material, because my thought there is, since it's individual, you're tested on that through your project. Okay, so that's why you only have one exam. Like, I thought about splitting it up, but when you split up the exam, then that takes more time, and then it reduces flexibility, because you'd have to basically have an exam the first week, the first or second week class. So trust me, I've thought about lots of scenarios, and this seems to be the most feasible. Okay, so just understand, that it is a lot of work. The group project is going to require significant collaboration. I'll tell you now, the students that the individual project that comes afterwards builds on the group project. So students who don't contribute to the group project, like who were very passive, just kind of, let everybody else take the lead, struggle significantly with the individual project. So you need to, make sure you contribute. Another thing I want to point out, when you work on your group project, you'll notice that it is organized by chapter. So, like, basically there's an assignment or deliverables associated with each of the chapters. There's 5 chapters. The groups I recommend are like 4 to 5 people. So naturally, students tend to say, okay, well, let's each get a chapter. Be warned, that is not the best way to approach this. One, the chapters are not equally distributed as far as workload. The chapter 4 material is by far the most significant, like probably more than all the other chapters combined. So you want to be careful, and also they all have to work together. Like, it's all kind of like, you really can't do chapter 4. I mean, you need what you learned from the prior chapter, from the prior assignment. So it needs to be, make sure you keep that in mind when you're deciding how to allocate work. It needs to be collaborative. Okay, so I talk about each of these assignments, each of the course components in the syllabus. Read that. One thing I will say, one more thing to watch out for your exam: it is open notes, but not open book. Okay, and what that's doing is I'm giving you more of an incentive. If, in addition to earning 250 points, 25% of your grade just for completing the chapter outlines, I want you to complete them well, right? And if you do so, then you should be, it should really help you to do well on the exam. You cannot use your book, but you can use your chapter outlines or any notes. You will submit your chapter outlines. We talked about that before exam one. I know that students learn differently, so do what makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you to print out the outlines and handwrite, that's fine. When you submit the chapter outlines, you can just take a picture and submit the pictures. If you're electronic, so if you download the chapter outlines and fill it in via keyboard typing it, then it'll be easier to upload. But please note, and make a note of this, if you're an electronic outline completer, if you're electronic, you need to print out a hard copy, a physical copy of your notes or whatever you're going to use for the exam, because it requires a lockdown browser, Respondus Monitor, so you will not be able to like toggle back and forth between multiple screens. So you need to have your notes or your outlines printed out before exam one if you're going to use them. Okay, so read all this. It talks a little bit about the team project. One thing I want to say, and there's more information about all this on Canvas too, but so you need to log in to Canvas ASAP, okay, and post an introduction to our first week discussion board. You're going to use this. You're not graded on it. You can say as much or as little as you want. However, I strongly suggest that you read the instructions for the team project first, okay, because you should use this discussion board as a way to connect with like-minded students that you can work with on this project. Students have until the end of week one, okay, to self-select teammates for the team project. Monday of week two, as soon as week two starts, I'll go into Canvas. Whoever's not in a group, I will form you with other students who are looking for, pair you up with other students who are needing team members. Well, I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I will tell you that from my experience, if you're, wanting to do really well, if you're a, type A person, a go-getter, you're probably going to more likely to be paired up with similar people with similar mindsets, similar expectations, similar goals, if you are proactive and connect through this discussion board. That's the first week. You are required, even if you don't care, even if you're like, just sign me up with whoever, you are required to post to the discussion board the first week, because I use that to verify your attendance. So it is a requirement to post something to the introduction board. Read the instructions for the team project first. You'll notice that you are going to be working with a real company. So it's very helpful if you have a company that you work for that you think would be good fit for this project. If you have a connection, maybe you don't, but you really want to do a specific company because you're wanting to work there when you graduate, or work there, now, or get whatever. Include that in your discussion introduction, because that will help a lot. Okay, so so everything syllabus is a good starting point. You'll see most of this stuff, it gives basic information in the syllabus, but it will tell you where to get more information. So for example, the team project, refer to Canvas for more details, blah, 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 can be found in the team project module of Canvas. Okay, I'll show you how to access Canvas navigate Canvas in just a minute. But after it talks about each assignment, you've got your standard policies. At the end, you have your weekly schedule. Okay, this information basically represents, you'll see now I'm going to start kind of going back and forth in Canvas. What happened? Let's see. What did I do? There we go. In Canvas, I suggest that when you log in, if it doesn't default to the module view, that you always click on modules. I know some students like to poke around and access stuff. I try to hide some other views. Some like to go directly in assignments or quizzes, but it can get confusing. You can end up looking at something that's an old version. But we have it organized by modules. So you'll see the first module is Welcome to the Course. It's going to help you get started. It's going to give you, you're going to click here to introduce yourself. Again, that's due on May 21st. If you've never done if you've never taken a class in Canvas, I already showed you that, I believe. Click, and it'll give you links to Canvas training. Information if you've never used Lockdown Browser, that can help you with that. Information about the course, this stuff is just basically from the syllabus. Then the next module is the syllabus and weekly schedule. We just talked about this. We kind of went through the syllabus. This right here, the weekly schedule, it's at the end of the syllabus, but it's also saved as a separate document here. This is going to correspond to, if we scroll down, hold on, you've got your team project, bukus of resources and information, individual project, same thing, information. And then if we scroll down to the bottom, you see weekly modules. Okay, so week 1, week 2, week 3, so on and so forth. These modules basically correspond to the weekly information here. What I like about using Canvas, the weekly modules in Canvas, is it's going to help you find the resources, right? So it says, complete, so week 1, complete chapter outlines for chapter 1 and 2. Well, here, if I'm in here, it's going to tell me there's within each weekly module, there's an overview page, and you're going to start there. And so basically this tells you everything, same information that's here, but anything in blue you can click on to access the specific resource. So review the course syllabus, click on it, and it'll take you right to it. Review the instructions for the team project. I said to do that before you post. Click on that. There, you can get right to it. Okay, and then let's see, you're covering chapters 1 and 2 the first week. So we've got your outline. So each chapter has an outline. This is what you're going to submit. Okay, so we click on this. You can download it. Gives you a summary and like different questions to answer. You will notice that each chapter, well, the first 5 chapters 1 through 4 and 5 come with slides. So when you click on these slides, not only does it summarize what's important, but you'll notice these speaker icons throughout. Anytime you see a speaker icon, that's embedded lecture notes. That's where I'm talking. So you click on it, and it's going to tell you what I would say, what I have to say about it, what you need to focus on, tips for studying, explaining things, providing examples, whatever. You cannot access my notes, my lectures directly in Canvas, so you have to download it. Once you open it up in PowerPoint, then these become active, and when you click on it, you can hover over it, you'll see a play button. Okay, so you can't look at it here. This does not work. The speaker function does not work on Chromebooks. I don't know why. And it's not compatible with Chromebooks. You will have to download it onto your PC or Mac, open it in PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint, anything like that, you also need Excel for the team project. You can access that for free through Microsoft 365 because you're a student at UWF, and you can access that subscription, activate it, download it, whatever, through the UWF My UWF website. So it's actually, if you log into My UWF, I think under probably student resources, it will show you a link. Okay, so if you only have a Chromebook, or maybe you would prefer this option, you can download the PowerPoint app on your phone, tablet, whatever, and then so you can also listen to my lecture comments through the app as well. So that might be helpful. Okay, you'll notice that we're going back to this weekly overview. So for each chapter, we have chapter 1 outline. That's what we just looked at. We just looked at the chapter 1 slides. And this is chapter 1 outline, submit here. So this is where, once you complete that, so you will click here, and it reminds you again stuff about and you will, you're going to upload that. I'm in a different view. I'm in instructor view, but if I was in student view, you would have an option to upload your outline for chapter 1 here. Okay, this is how you get credit. Chapter 1 and 2 outlines are going to be in the weekly overview week 1, but they're really not due until you just need to submit them before you take your exam, which is during week 3. Okay, so this is kind of what you want to go through. In addition to you can access the weekly, submit your weekly, your chapter outlines, from the overview page on each week, but there's also a separate module where I have all the submissions. So if you're right before you take the exam, if it's easier probably just to go into the submit chapter outlines module and just submit each one, boop, boop, boop. Remember, if you do it by hand, just take a picture of it. Okay. So each week has a module. You always want to start here, and again, it's going to give you links. It's going to tell you everything to do. If you go through this and you have any questions, ask me. Again, I don't want you struggling. I don't want you getting frustrated with this kind of stuff. So you're going to post this week into the Introduce Yourself discussion board. When you, if you know, you say, hey, this is, you can say whatever you want. You can say, hey, I take projects really seriously. I want to make sure I like to work ahead. Or you might say, hey, I'm out the week 3 and 4 with limited email access, so I need to do it. Anything that you think would help, set you up for success. That's what you should include here. You want to find people with, maybe you are super, you have a busy work schedule, and the only time you could collaborate is on the weekends, or maybe you can't collaborate on the weekends. Anything like that. I mean, compatibility is what you're looking for. You want to find people with like-minded goals, like-minded expectations, so on and so forth. So include whatever you think will help in this discussion board. Once you find, you might see somebody's post, and you can either reply to the thread and say, hey, would you like to work together? Or you can go into the inbox feature in Canvas and send them an email directly. When you click on this email or the inbox, you select your course, and then you have an option to, in the to field, to select different students, and you can select any student from the class. Do that way. Anyway, when you are ready to form a group, you're going to go to people, and there's something called project groups. Okay, and you are going to set up a group. One person can set up a group, and then other people can add. Please do not go in here and add yourself to a group of students if you have not already communicated with them, either through email, text, so on and so forth. When I say self-select teams, I mean mutual selection here. This is not Sunday, the last that go in and find and just add yourself. It needs to be initiated through a conversation and mutually agreed upon. Okay, so if you do not have found anybody that you want to work with by the end of the first week, I'll put you with people beginning of week 2. All right. The other thing I want to say is you'll notice, let's go back here. You'll notice that in week 4, and all this will make sense once you've read the materials, once you've read the project instructions and all this will make more sense. But each team is required to meet with me at least one time to talk about the project. Okay, this is, and the deadline is the end of week 4. I strongly encourage you to meet ahead of time. I mean, the deadline is week 4. You can meet once you get going. If you have questions, don't wait till week 4 to ask them. Okay, so it's just that's the last minute. By the time we meet, especially if we meet during week 4, it should really be here's all our stuff. You see anything that we're missing, so just understand, if you meet earlier, then obviously it's not, the expectation of what should be completed is not the same. There is really no, to get these points, the 50 points, it's just that your group meets with me and we talk and connect, but use it to your advantage to help. Now, your individual project is based on you've got to use a component of your team project for your individual project. So I'll probably send a separate email about that out a couple weeks into the semester when things kind of make more sense. Because it's possible for you to start your individual project. It may be possible to start your individual project before you submit your team project. You just have to be through a certain stage of your team project. All I want to say for that right now is, if the idea here, the individual project is not, it is time consuming, but it's not like the team project in a sense that the team project, part of the stress is that you have to rely on other people for information. You're communicating with people from a company. You're having to get their input. And so with the individual project, you can sit down and literally hammer it out. Like you'll have everything you need from the work that you've prepared for your team project is what resources you need for your individual project. So in all honesty, like this, you have basically, if you wait and don't start your individual project till after your team project is submitted, then just be aware that this is it. You have 1 week to do it. You have that last week, and that's doable. But it's a significant. I mean, it's significant, but you can sit down, like you're not waiting, relying on, waiting for information, things like that. So I'm telling you that because if you know that week is going to be crazy for you, then it's going to be very important that you're one with a group who, doesn't wait until the last minute to start the team project, but also just touch base with me, after maybe week 2 or something, once you kind of got your feet wet, and I'll work with your team specifically to make sure that, or I'll go ahead and explain to you at least the exact parts that you need to have completed from your team project before you start your individual project so that you could start it as soon as possible, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's I think I hopefully haven't totally confused you, but once you read the syllabus, read the team project instructions, some of the stuff that I'm talking about should make a little more sense. But I'm going to stop right there for now, but please reach out to me if you have more questions. And like I said, I'm happy I may post a part 2. But welcome to the class. Don't be a stranger, and have a great first week. Talk to you soon.